The initial Springbok squad for the Argentinian Test and the Greatest Rivalry Series has been announced, folks. It looks pretty big on utility. You can see the youth or inexperience or the low cap guys are coming in and cementing themselves as first choice players for Rassie. They're preparing for the altitude at Joburg. They're going to split the squad between Argentina and some guys staying in South Africa. We'll go through it pretty quick, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. Obviously, fixtures-wise, Argentina are up first. That same weekend, I think that the All Blacks are taking on the Stormers. The Boks will be over in Argentina with their kind of one prep test ahead of the Greatest Rivalry Tour, and then they're back in South Africa for a match against the All Blacks 2 weeks later at Joburg. So it's a little bit reminiscent of a Lions tour where the host kind of doesn't actually get that much actual game time to prep. It's maybe a little bit better in that they've just had the Nations Championship. Rassie definitely did a bit of rotation and trying some new combinations and blooding some new talent in that. So he did have those 3 matches, but he immediately head of the actual tour now. He's only got the 1 match against Argentina, just like the Aussies only had Fiji last year before that Lions tour. Well, that's the only match they had. At least Rassie has had that Nations Championship to see some of these new faces. Some of the new faces have continued on in the squad, and there are some guys who have been released back to their franchises. We'll get to that in a second. I think firstly, though, there's the return of the big gun kind of key players, many of whom who've been with Rassie since 2018, 2019, that World Cup campaign. The likes of Sia being back and confirmed, because some of these guys have had injury doubts or layoffs or whatnot. Eben is back, Luteyaka is back, Franco Mostert is back. So there's a bunch of experience in those forwards. And in the backs, Sasha being back in the 43 is certainly good because he's just been out, unavailable. The status of his return, I guess we'll find out as the days go by. Mone van der Berg is back, Hondre is in there, Andre Esterhuizen, Kane Moody, Ethan Hooker. So I don't think there's any real kind of big shocks about the actual 43. 43 is a pretty big squad. There's not going to be as many omissions if it was a much tighter squad, but it needs to be a big squad because not only have you got the travel factor to Argentina, but you've got then 4 tests against the All Blacks. There's going to be guys who end up getting injured, who have to miss game time. You're going to need players to be able to step in the mix across such a physical and demanding tour that we're all hoping it is going to be. From a positive rugby aspect, I'm sure you understand. But of the guys who didn't make it, like Mkunu, Roos, and Fenta in your forwards, and then Jaco Williams and Embros Papier in the backs, I think Roos is the one guy who gets focused on so much because of the nature of his game. He's a big physical ball carrier. He attracts attention. He scores tries. Sometimes gives away a few too many penalties, but he's a very dynamic player, so he attracts a lot of attention. You want a guy like that in your squad, but you've got Jasper Wiese, you've got Cameron Honeycomb, so you've got some big bodies in the Bok loose, so there's always going to be someone who misses out, but it's only initially missing out as well, because the guys who did miss out on the initial 43-man squad, some of them are going to get opportunities as the tour goes by and guys drop out for whatever reason. So staying at that kind of high intensity, potentially playing the All Blacks for your club, that can only best prep you in case you do get the call up for the actual test matches themselves. Jaco Williams, would have been nice to see him in the mix as well because he had such a great debut, but this is going to be another level of fixture, so he'll have plenty of time. He's still a very young man. Embros Papier at the other end of the experience scale maybe can feel a bit unlucky because I thought he played pretty well in the one test we saw him get in the Nations Championship where he had a very good game, but he's back to his club for this one because Mone van der Berg is back. It's maybe a bit of a surprise they've gone with 4 fly halves. Pollard, Sasha, Mani, and Vusi Moyo. You might have gone with 3, but I guess with 2 of these 4 guys still having that injury cloud about them, Rassie wants to make sure he's fully covered. And I'm assuming he's going to send 2 to Argentina and leave 2 in South Africa, but I'm trying to predict Rassie here, and that is a very tough thing to do. So I am not sure. Vusi, I would have thought, would be a great candidate to get a game against the All Blacks for his club, but maybe they've got him earmarked for Argentina because the squad is going to have to be split. Remember, there's going to be a core of, like, what do they say, 10 or 15 guys who stay at altitude in Joburg with this prep camp, and then some of them will travel to Argentina. Rassie did say that some players are returning from injury and need valuable game time, so depending on how they progress from their injuries and next week's training camp, we'll decide who to take to Argentina. So they still got that decision to make. They're going to track the guys' progress, but we'll certainly get a slightly better read on Rassie's thinking, again, if you can get into that man's head, once the split is announced between which guys are going to Argentina and which guys are staying in South Africa preparing for the All Blacks. Like some guys like Peter Steff, although he didn't play any club rugby or not much club rugby this season, just played 3 games back to back to back for the Boks in the Nations Championship, so maybe he's a candidate to stay. And some of the other less experienced guys go. I did mention utility as a big factor. That's a big theme on this Boks squad. You've got so many guys who cover multiple positions. Like Esterhuizen is the kind of most given example with his ability to literally play as a back or a forward. But I mean, even in the forwards like Peter Steer, Franco Mostert, Chituka, Van Staden, Kobus Visa, Hendrik Wessels, all these guys cover at least 2 positions, lock, loose forward, hooker, loose forward, prop hooker. So that's definitely a big theme in the squad, and so many of the guys in the back line are very flexible. You've got flexibility in your goal kickers because you've got not just your 10s who take the kicks at goal as well, with like Ches and Colby being able to fill in that position, potentially to pair him up with the likes of Amani, who maybe performs better when the goal kicking duties are taken off his shoulders. That's another one to wait and see. Also, the youth and inexperience, I want to use this in a positive term. You can certainly see it's gone from like sneaking its way into the squad to cementing itself into the squad. Like some of these guys who were new names, the likes of a Zach Porthen, like his name doesn't surprise anymore when you see that on the Boks squad team sheet. Kyle Usadi had a great introduction to Bok rugby in July. Ben Jason Dixon has kind of been there or thereabouts. He retains his spot. Chituka in that regard as well. So it's really coming in to this Boks squad, which for a few years has been pretty tight and kind of hard to break into because they had that double World Cup winning run. It's been hard for the youngsters to break in, but you can certainly see it. It's just evolving. That's what's happening as Rassie. We saw it in July with all the rotation he did. That's the way it's heading. Herschel Yankees ahead of Embros Papier. Maybe will rankle a few people, but as I said, someone else is going to get a chance, and I think Grant Williams, with the form he's been in, is going to be a hard man to displace anyway. The altitude factor will be an interesting one for the guys who do stay there to see how their fitness adapts in that regard. But I think from the All Blacks perspective, they start at sea level with the Stormers and then the Sharks in Durban, but then they make their way to Pretoria for the Bulls before they play the first test. So both sides, to one extent or another, should be at least relatively well adjusted to the altitude. But yeah, I think overall you'd be pretty happy with the squad. I don't think you'd be too disappointed for the 5 guys who sent back to their franchises. Did I mention Ruben van Heerden's off to Montpellier, so they wanted to let him go settle in with his club first, but then he'll be on standby for the Boks if needed. I'm also really pleased. I think maybe the one guy I want to highlight the most, which I didn't even mention, was Paul de Villiers. Geez, did he impress in July as well. He took to Test match rugby like an absolute duck to water. So very, very pleased for him to be in the 43 as well. So yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on Rassie and his squad selection. How do you think they are going to go? Who do you think stays for the core group in Joburg? And who do you think are the guys who need some match fitness, if they're fit indeed for that game? But you guys let us know your thoughts. Take care. Subscribe if you haven't done so. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.